The story kicks off with a bunch of wyverns, hot on the heels of a black cat who's sprinting for dear life with his son clutched in his mouth. As he dashes forward, he knows he has to give these overgrown lizards the slip. No way is he letting the master of the tree take this kid. One of the wyverns swoops in to attack, but the black cat leaps into the air and blasts a wave of magic behind him, fully aware that he needs to get out of Dodge as fast as possible. Soon they reach a cave. The black cat sets his son down, assuring him it's safe. The little one, looking like a confused potato, asks where they are. Instead of answering, the black cat tells him to stay put, saying he has some business to take care of and will be right back. Hearing that, the small cat freaks out and insists on tagging along, admitting he's not exactly thrilled about being left alone in a dark cave. But his father simply pats his head, apologizing as he mentions how he couldn't even protect his mother, so risking his son's life is out of the question. With no other choice, the small cat sniffles but nods, staying behind as his father walks out of the cave. A few hours pass and the sun dips below the horizon, yet the black cat is nowhere in sight. The little one fights off sleep but eventually dozes off. The next morning, he stretches lazily, only to realize his father still hasn't returned. Just as his stomach starts growling like an angry beast, something rolls into the cave. His ears perk up as he spots a neat little row of fruits lined up like some suspiciously convenient buffet. His gut tells him it's sketchy, but hunger wins over logic. Just as he opens his mouth for a bite, his father storms in like a bat out of hell, knocking him aside and yelling that it's dangerous. Before the small cat can even process what's happening, a wyvern barges into the cave, having tried to lure him out with a dirty trick. The black cat, already done with this nonsense, immediately fires off a burst of red magic arrows, taking down the wyvern. After checking if his son is okay, the little one admits that he tried using magic but keeps failing. His father reassures him, saying that magic requires focus and promises to teach him proper breathing techniques later. Just then, the black cat notices a hole in the ceiling and realizes they need to get the hell out of there, as the wyverns now know their location. He grabs his son and leaps up, but the little one immediately panics as another wyvern appears. The black cat, realizing he's about to be hit from both sides, barely has time to react. Thinking fast, he unleashes a powerful magic blast, taking down both threats in one go. However, before they can breathe easy, another wyvern shows up, and this time, he's fresh out of magic juice. Knowing he won't be able to dodge, he shields his son, bracing for impact. The wyvern strikes, slamming the black cat into the ground, leaving the little one trembling in fear. As the wyvern flies away, a man nearby spots it in the sky and wonders what in the world wyverns are doing in this forest. Sensing something weird is going on, he decides to check it out. Meanwhile, the black cat, despite his aching body and low magic reserves, quickly stands up and scans the area, spotting a small cave with a narrow entrance. He makes a break for it with his son. Once inside, the little one worriedly asks if he's okay, but the black cat waves him off, saying he just needs a quick power nap. Even though he's bleeding like a stuck pig, he lies down, making sure not to show his pain, as he is completely aware that if his son realizes how bad it is, he'll start freaking out. Just then, the wyvern that attacked the black cat scans the area before landing with a loud thud. As it glances around, its gaze soon locks onto a trail of blood leading straight to a cave. Following the trail, it peeks inside the crevice, only to spot the black cat and his son snoozing away like they have zero worries in the world. Seriously? The wyvern almost seems to think. I nearly knocked you into next week, and you're out here taking a nap? Not one to waste an opportunity, it opens its mouth to attack. But before it can unleash destruction, a flying drone-like contraption zooms in and smacks it right in the jaw, jamming its mouth open. The wyvern stumbles back in shock, flailing as if someone just hit it with a frying pan. A few steps away, the man who had spotted the wyvern earlier pulls back his drone, cracking his neck. "All right, big guy," he calls out, smirking. "How about you pick on someone your own size?" The wyvern, clearly not one to back down from a challenge, takes his words way too seriously and charges at him, jaws wide open, ready to gobble him up like a buffet meal. But the man sidesteps at the last second, leaving the wyvern to chomp down on a tree instead. While the beast is busy giving itself a headache, the man seizes the moment, unsheathes his sword, and with one clean swipe, bam, the wyvern's head is rolling on the ground. As the lifeless body collapses, the man sighs. Not my fault. You wandered out of your home turf, pretty much had a death flag on your head. Just then, a thought strikes him as he wonders what was the wyvern even staring at inside the crevice. Curious, he steps closer and peers behind the rocks. Before he can react, a small furball launches itself straight at his face, claws out, aiming right for his mouth. He barely manages to yank the tiny attacker away with one hand. Holding it up, he stares at the squirming kitten. A cat? Seriously? Were you what that wyvern was after? He frowns. Wait, do wyverns even eat cats? As he lowers the kitten slightly, his gaze shifts to the bloodstains on the ground. Something doesn't add up. If the wyvern was after food, why was there so much blood? Was it chasing something else? Before he can investigate further, the small cat suddenly growls, eyes glowing, before unleashing a tiny magic blast that knocks the steel mask right off the man's face. He stumbles back, staring in disbelief. You can use magic? Landing on the ground, the small cat glares up at him. Stay away from my father! The man freezes. Wait, you can talk? His brain takes a moment to process that. Okay, that's new. Realizing that this situation is spiraling fast, he raises his hands. Look, chill out, Furball. I don't want to fight, I just want to talk. But the small cat isn't having any of it. With a determined meow, he fires another blast. The man dodges easily, but as he steadies himself, he realizes the kitten doesn't understand a word he's saying. Worse, it's out for blood. All right, the man sighs, gripping his sword. Can't let this little menace run loose if it's this aggressive. He braces himself to counterattack, but then stops dead in his tracks. Right in front of him stands the black cat, looking worse than ever, his stomach bleeding like a fountain. The man instantly pieces it together as he realizes that the kitten was only protecting his injured father. A wave of guilt washes over him. He was about to strike down a kid who was just trying to save his family. The small cat immediately positions himself in front of his father. Stay back, it's dangerous. The man exhales sharply before raising his arm in surrender. I can heal him. The kitten blinks. Wait, you can? The man nods. After a few moments, the black cat lies on the ground, still alive but barely holding on. The man steps back, realizing that even though he did what he could, the cat doesn't have much time left. The small cat rushes to his father's side. Are you okay? He asks, completely unaware that surviving this long is already a miracle. Slowly, the black cat opens one eye and weakly pats his son's head. The little one immediately bows in front of the man. Thank you for saving my father. The man simply nods, cold and detached, before turning away. I'm just here for the wyvern's corpse, he mutters, pulling his mask back on. But as he walks toward the fallen wyvern, his body stiffens. Something's wrong. The head of the wyvern is still there, but the body? Completely gone. Before he can react, the small cat suddenly leaps at him, slamming into his stomach. Move aside! It's dangerous! Before he can react, a massive force strikes them both, launching them straight into a tree. As he coughs and shakes off the impact, he looks up, and his blood runs cold. The wyvern is standing again, but instead of a head, a glowing tree is sprouting from its neck. What the hell am I looking at? The man mutters, officially done with today. The wyvern suddenly leaps into the air, its power surging, and then barrels toward them at full speed. Before it can land a crushing blow, the black cat intervenes, using what little magic he has left to hold it back. No! The small cat's eyes widen in horror. His father is already on the brink, and this attack could finish him off for good. As the impact of their clashing magic shakes the entire area, the small cat breaks free from the man's grip and rushes toward his father. Meanwhile, the man watches the wyvern with a grim expression. This thing just got a lot stronger. Deciding to put an end to this before it spirals even further, he raises his hand and activates his weapon golem. But as he pulls the trigger, nothing happens. He blinks. You've got to be kidding me. Now's not the time to malfunction. Meanwhile, the small cat stands beside his father, struggling to focus as he desperately tries to summon his magic. But once again, nothing happens. His frustration peaks and he glances at the man. Help us, my father! He stops mid-sentence, his breath hitching. The man is gone. Panic creeps in as he realizes that it's just him, his wounded father, and a wyvern that won't stay dead. Before he can react, a powerful surge of magic slams into him, sending him flying like a rag doll. As he crashes onto the ground, bouncing a few times like a tossed pebble, he barely manages to lift his head, only to see his father pinned under the wyvern's massive claws. Tears well up in his eyes, even though he knows he shouldn't cry and he needs to be strong. But how? He's too small, too weak, and he can't protect his father. Just then, his eyes widen in shock. Above them, the man suddenly appears, flying. He lands right on the wyvern's head and without hesitation rips out the strange tree growing from its neck. "This is the cause of your resurrection," he mutters. At that moment, the small cat notices something. The wyvern's focus is entirely on the man. If he's going to act, now's his moment. Gritting his teeth, he tries once more to gather his energy. This time he has no choice. He has to protect his father. Meanwhile, the man barely manages to rip a chunk of the branch from the wyvern's head before the beast hurls him away. As he inspects the branch in his hand, his eyes narrow. It's absorbing mana, he realizes. Then, his gaze shifts to the small cat. The mana is flowing straight into him. Just as the small cat feels the magic power surging within him, he dashes toward the wyvern, knowing this is his chance to save his father. With a deep breath, he opens his mouth and unleashes the energy in one powerful blast. The wyvern, caught completely off guard, has no time to dodge or counter and collapses lifelessly. The man watches with wide eyes, barely holding back a whistle. "Well, ain't that a doozy? Kid packed a serious punch," he mutters, still processing the sheer force the little furball just unleashed. As the dust settles, the small cat rushes to his father, who lies on the ground, barely breathing. Tail wagging with excitement, he jumps up and down. "I did it, Dad. The big bad monster is toast. We don't have to run anymore." His father, struggling to keep his eyes open, weakly smiles. "Yeah, you sure did, kid. You're a real tough cookie." As the black cat's vision blurs, he wonders when his son grew so strong. Regret creeps into his mind. Should he have let his son fight alongside him instead of shielding him? He had so much left to teach him, but time had slipped away like sand through his paws. With his last ounce of strength, he pats his son's head. "You're such a great cat," he murmurs before his paw falls lifelessly to the ground. The small cat freezes before his eyes widen in horror. He frantically tries to use his magic, hoping to heal him, but nothing changes. Tears stream down his face as he desperately continues. The man watches in silence, letting the moment sink in. A few moments later, he picks up the small cat and sighs. "Kid, he's gone," he says flatly. "He died protecting you." The small cat's fur bristles as he glares at the man. "Shut up! Stop talking nonsense!" he snaps, his voice shaking. "Don't be so cruel." As the cat refuses to leave his father's side, the man sighs and picks him up, squeezing his cheeks. "Listen, furball, you want to sit here and end up a monster's lunch too? That what your dad wanted?" The small cat stops struggling, his body trembling. Seeing the cat quiet down, the man softens his tone. "Come with me. I'll take you somewhere safe, where you can get stronger, strong enough that no one will ever have to protect you again." The small cat hesitates before looking at his father one last time. "Are you really telling the truth?" The man nods. "Of course I am, and once you toughen up, I'll bring you back to visit his grave. But only if you stop bawling like a lost kitten. Crying is for weaklings." After they bury his father, the man lifts the wyvern's corpse onto his back and starts walking. "My name's Hawk, by the way." "What about you?" The small cat looks down. "Dad always called me his son." However, Hawk points out that it is not a name but a relationship, suggesting that he choose a name for himself so others can call him by it from now on. The small cat hesitates before mentioning that his father used to call him a great cat, but he quickly contradicts himself, admitting that he is not great since his father died protecting him. After a brief pause, he adds that he can simply be called just a cat. Hawk continues walking, casually addressing him as just a cat. They arrive at the entrance of Frisia, a city in the Garnet Kingdom. The street is bustling, but people wrinkle their noses at the awful stench following Hawk. Muttering apologies, he squeezes through the annoyed crowd. One bystander even grumbles that he could have at least used anti-decay magic. Hawk shrugs and keeps walking, unfazed by the complaints. A man in a black robe narrows his eyes as he spots Hawk. Muttering under his breath, he realizes he'll have to change his plans. Nearby, a butcher busily chops meat when a knock echoes at his shop's door. Without looking up, he calls out that they're closed for the day. However, the door creaks open anyway, and he glances up, ready to shoo the intruder away, until he recognizes Hawk. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," Gunter says, wiping his hands. Hawk steps inside and nods. "Been a week, huh?" Gunter leans on the counter, raising an eyebrow. "So, did you find your target?" Hawk shakes his head. "Nope. Got a little sidetracked and brought back something big." Gunter peers past him at the massive wyvern carcass and lets out a low whistle. Inspecting the remains, he clicks his tongue. "What the hell did you do to it? The torso's trashed. We'll have to dump that part." He sighs but confirms he'll handle the rest. As he works, he side-eyes Hawk. "You're taking longer than usual." Hawk stays silent, fiddling with his gloves. "I'm just an informant, so I ain't complaining," Gunter continues, "but things are getting dicey. Word on the street is that the kingdoms are gearing up for war. If this mission drags out much longer, those rumors might turn real." Hawk nods. "I get it, but there weren't any leads in the forest." Gunter mutters that the intel must have been off and promises to dig up more. Handing Hawk a portrait, he taps the paper. "This is Sirius, the Topaz Kingdom's traitor. He needs to be dealt with." This is the same man who had been lurking in the crowd, the one who had stiffened and muttered something under his breath as he decided to change his plans the moment he saw Hawk enter the town. As Gunter reveals that processing the wyvern will take time, Hawk sets the picture aside and waves a hand. "Take your time with the wyvern. I only need 2 claws. You can keep the rest." "Fair deal," Gunter says, already reaching for his tools. He grips a blade but then pauses, his gaze shifting to the tiny furball resting in Hawk's arms. His brow lifts. "By the way, what's up with the cat?" The next morning, Hawk dozes off with his helmet still on while just a cat sleeps beside him. All is peaceful until the little cat stirs, searching groggily for his father. As memories of the previous day flood back, his ears droop and tears start welling up. Sniffling, he turns to Hawk, nudging his helmet. The helmet topples off, empty. The cat freezes. His tiny heart nearly stops. You died?" A voice from the chair scoffs. "No, I didn't." The cat jumps, wide-eyed as Hawk sits across the room. Hawk gestures at the empty armor. "That's just some clothes stuffed to look like me. I don't sleep in beds." The cat blinks. "But why? It's so soft and comfortable." "Occupational hazard," Hawk replies vaguely, checking his weapon. The cat has no clue what that means, but decides it must be some warrior nonsense. Meanwhile, Hawk examines his golem weapon carefully. A realization dawns on him. It didn't malfunction. The problem was complete mana depletion. The cat hops onto the table, peering at the odd device in Hawk's hands. "What's that thing?" "A mana cell," Hawk explains, holding up the small battery-like object. "It stores mana. The golem won't function without it." He inserts the cell and a soft clicking sound follows as the weapon hums back to life. Hawk narrows his eyes. The mana didn't just disappear. He glances at the cat, realizing that he was the reason the mana depleted. The cat marvels at the golem's movement. "That's so cool," Hawk scowls. "Oi, stop messing with my gear." Before the cat can protest, Hawk stands up. "Come on, we've got somewhere to be." Just a Cat asks where they are going, and Hawk informs him that they are heading to the Hunters Guild, an organization formed by mages and merchants to manage the hunting of dangerous creatures like monsters and magical beings. Since the guild provides hunters with various services, including the authority to cross national borders freely, most adventurers register to gain these privileges, and Hawk is no exception. However, today he is using the guild for a different reason. As they enter, the receptionist asks if he wishes to register a familiar, momentarily confusing Hawk before he notices that the guild is almost empty. The receptionist explains that taming magical creatures is rare, so not many come for this service. Hawk then shows her the cat, stating that it has been living with him and might be a magical creature. Just a cat, bewildered, demands to know what is happening. The receptionist, surprised that the cat can speak, reveals that since it can talk, the cat is for sure a magical creature. However, she still takes the cat, revealing that an inspection is still mandatory and assures them that the procedure will be quick. Placing a scanning device on the cat's paw, she watches as a sheen of light runs over him. Just the cat immediately starts squirming, saying that he doesn't like it, but she encourages him to endure it for a moment. Meanwhile, Hawk remarks that unregistered magical creatures are classified as top-tier hunting targets, which makes Just a Cat freeze in place. The receptionist glares at Hawk, scolding him for scaring the cat, but he simply shrugs, claiming that he was helping. She orders him to step aside and not interfere, and he moves toward the window. Just then, the glass shatters as a rock crashes through it. The receptionist screams, demanding to know what just happened, while Hawk quickly assesses the situation. Realizing that it was just an ordinary rock, he deduces that it is either a prank or a trap. Peeking through the broken window, he spots a man in a black robe standing on a rooftop across the street. Recognition hits him instantly, and he mutters the man's name, Master Sirius. A memory resurfaces of his training days when Sirius had once reprimanded him, saying that charging in blindly would never make him a true Death Knight. Back in the present, Hawk clenches his fists, realizing he still has much to learn. The receptionist, worried about the damage, asks if he saw who threw the rock, but he ignores her, grabbing Just a Cat and rushing outside. She tries to stop him, reminding him that she still needs to check the test results, but he leaps out of the window without a second thought. At the same time, the scanning device flashes red, confirming that the cat is not a magical creature. Hawk uses his grappling rope to pull himself onto the rooftop, now standing face to face with Sirius. Demanding to know why he has appeared now, Sirius casually remarked that he wouldn't have hidden if he had known it was Hawk following him. Hawk asks if he is mocking him, but Sirius simply states that he trusts him. Hawk, whose patience wearing thin, demands an answer for why Sirius betrayed the Topaz Kingdom and the Death Knights, to which Sirius cryptically responds that Hawk is keeping the cat without realizing the truth. Just as he is about to reveal something, an arrow pierces his neck. Another arrow flies toward Hawk, but he swiftly blocks it, realizing that either a sniper is targeting them, or this was a setup from the start. He stands in front of Sirius with his sword in his hand. Just then, a woman steps onto the chimney, her eyes burning with rage as she accuses Hawk of siding with Sirius. She declares that if he chooses to protect a traitor, then he too must be eliminated. Hawk, taken aback, tries to explain that she is mistaken, but she cuts him off, saying she has no interest in excuses. With her weapon drawn, she makes her intentions clear. Hawk is now a target. Lena, a member of Topaz Kingdom's elite assassination squad of Death Knights, stands in front of Hawk, ready to fight. The elite assassination squad has no ranks or recognition, and officially, its members don't even exist. Their only job is to wipe out the kingdom's enemies, no questions asked. As Lena launches her attacks, Hawk dodges her arrows with his sword, preparing to strike back. Meanwhile, Sirius yanks the arrow from his neck using magic and peeks at the fight. Seeing an assassin stirring up chaos, he figures it's best to skedaddle before things get even messier. Just then, Just a Cat chimes in, asking if he can jump in and help take down the crazy assassin lady. Hawk immediately shuts him down, saying there's no need. Meanwhile, Sirius gets to his feet, realizing that if an assassin from the elite assassination squad is here, it won't be long before the guild starts sniffing around. He heals his wound and takes one last glance at Hawk, silently apologizing for not telling him the truth. Hawk, now all fired up, charges at Lena. Her eyes widen as she fumbles to reload her bow, realizing she might not be able to block in time. At the last second, she barely manages to jump, dodging his strike before firing another volley from midair. Hawk, already expecting it, looks up and skillfully deflects each arrow. As Lena lands, she scans the area and suddenly flares up. Sirius is gone. She quickly recalls that he's a mage-type warrior and must have pulled a disappearing act with his magic tricks. Hawk wastes no time lunging at her again. She dodges and backs away, but before she can catch her breath, Hawk's golem weapon snakes around her arm mid-air and yanks her toward him. Before she can counter, Hawk slams her down, pinning her. He tells her to calm down and insists he's not a traitor, just a... Cat starts hyping him up for his skills, but Hawk immediately shuts him up with a glare. He mutters that Sirius was trying to say something, and he just wanted to listen. Lena, still fuming, shoots back. If Sirius really had something to say, where is he now? Hawk pauses, finally realizing Sirius is missing. His brows furrow as he demands to know where Sirius is, accusing Lena of hiding him. She snaps, reminding him that she just asked him the same question a few seconds ago. Still sitting on top of her, Hawk glances at the street and notices a crowd forming on the rooftops, watching like they're expecting a juicy street brawl. Deciding this is not the place for a deep talk, he quickly hauls Lena away to somewhere more private. A short while later, they arrive at Gunter's shop and sit across from each other. Hawk repeats that he is not a traitor, just like he said before. Lena, still looking like she's about to pop a blood vessel, glares at him in silence. Gunter strolls over with tea and casually tells them both to cool their jets and drink up. He then turns to Hawk, asking if they lost Sirius. Hawk sighs and admits they did, then asks if Gunter has any more dirt on him. Instead of answering, Gunter smirks and gives a simple suggestion. Both of you should quit trying to find Sirius. Lena's face twists in anger as she jumps to her feet, demanding to know what kind of nonsense Gunter is spouting. Hawk, just as baffled, asks if he's actually being serious. But Gunter stays as chill as ever and casually extends his arm and shows them a newspaper, telling them to take a look. Hawk grabs the paper and skims through it, his eyes widen as he reads the headline, "Topaz Kingdom Destroyed." Lena, still standing, looks even more shocked and demands to know what the heck that even means. Gunter sighs and explains that a glowing tree appeared in the royal palace, drawing in monsters like Free Buffet Day. Within days, the entire kingdom turned into an unlivable wasteland. Hawk's mind races as he remembers his battle with the reincarnated wyvern, specifically how that creature had a glowing tree for a face. Gunter shrugs and points out that hunting down a traitor is basically pointless now, considering the kingdom itself is on life support. He even suggests they should find a new line of work, maybe something that doesn't involve stabbing people for a paycheck. Meanwhile, Just a Cat peeks at the newspaper and suddenly starts shivering like a wet kitten. Hawk notices and picks him up, asking what's wrong. Still trembling, Just a Cat stammers out that this is the same tree, the master of the tree that he and his father were running from, the one that wouldn't stop chasing them. Hawk's brows furrow as he tries to make sense of it. Master of the tree, what's that supposed to mean? Before he can ask, Lena slams her hands on the table and declares that she's heading to headquarters to check things out herself. She then turns to Hawk, asking if he's coming with her or not. Just as Hawk opens his mouth to respond, a loud bang rattles the door. Gunter barely cracks it open and mutters that the shop is closed. But the person outside snorts and asks if they're really shutting down this early. Gunter nods, explaining that unexpected circumstances forced them to close up shop. Then he bluntly asks what the guy wants. The man outside flashes an ID and introduces himself as Lucas, an investigator from the guild. He then asks if Gunter has a moment to chat. Gunter narrows his eyes before asking what the conversation is about, but instead of answering, Lucas suddenly shouts Hawk's name, saying he already knows he's inside. Hawk, still holding Just a Cat, listens quietly from behind the door before stepping forward. As soon as Lucas sees him, he doesn't even say hello, he just shows him a bill to him. "That'll be 1.02 million yen, Lucas announces. "For the broken window," Gunter stares, completely lost, before asking what the hell Hawk has been up to. Before Hawk can answer, Lucas casually adds that Hawk also left something behind. He then asks if Hawk has time to take a look at it. Hawk frowns, trying to remember what he could have possibly forgotten. Lucas, without waiting, turns around and starts walking, telling Hawk to follow, he'll take him straight to it. As Hawk hesitates, Lena suddenly hops onto the rooftop, signaling that she's tagging along. But Hawk shoots her a look and gestures for her to back off, silently informing her that it's nothing. Lena's eye twitches before she lets out an annoyed huff and flips him off before stomping away. As Hawk follows Lucas, he starts noticing they're heading somewhere oddly quiet, a little too quiet. Eventually, they stop near a horse-drawn cart. Lucas gestures toward it and tells Hawk that his precious thing is inside. Hawk squints at him suspiciously before admitting it's probably a little late to mention this, but he's pretty sure he didn't leave anything behind. Lucas smirks, yanks a coffin out of the cart, and simply says, "Oh, you'll find out soon enough." As he places it on the ground, he unlatches it and swings it open. The second Hawk sees what's inside, his whole body stiffens. It's Sirius's corpse. Hawk's eyes darken as fury takes over. Without a second thought, he lunges at Lucas, aiming to knock him into next week, but Lucas effortlessly dodges and shakes his head. "If you kill me now," he says, staring straight into Hawk's furious eyes, "you'll just be proving how much of a dumbass you are." He pauses before adding, "You don't even know why Sirius is dead, do you?" Hawk grips his sword tighter, pouring even more strength into it. Lucas, sensing that Hawk is in full-on rage mode and not in the mood for small talk, instinctively backs off. But before he can do anything else, Hawk lunges at him, his golem weapon swinging toward Lucas, with enough force to knock someone into next week. Lucas barely manages to react, channeling his magic through his weapon just in time to block the attack. With a smirk, he announces that since Hawk clearly isn't interested in talking, he won't bother holding back. He warns Hawk not to come crying later if he ends up 6 feet under. Without wasting another second, Lucas unleashes a powerful magic blast, sending Hawk flying like a rag doll. The impact shakes the ground, spooking the nearby horses. They panic and bolt, momentarily catching Lucas's attention before he turns back to Hawk. Hawk, now sitting against a tree with his back aching like he just lost a wrestling match, glares at Lucas. Lucas watches him carefully, realizing that Hawk is way more emotional than expected, like a volcano ready to blow. Still breathing heavily, Hawk shoots a glance at Just a Cat and warns him to stay out of it. But Just a Cat, instead of listening, tilts his head and asks if the guy in the coffin was important to him. Hawk barely spares him a glance before bluntly saying nope. Then, without another word, he picks up the cat and plops him aside like a sack of potatoes, repeating that he should stay put. Just a Cat, now sitting on the ground, looking like someone stole his lunch money, mumbles that he wants to fight alongside Hawk. But before he can argue further, Hawk pulls off his helmet and places it over Just a Cat's head. In a rare moment of softness, he requests that the cat stay inside it and keep himself safe. Just a Cat, realizing he has no other choice, sighs in defeat, while Hawk squares his shoulders, ready for round 2. Lucas, watching the whole interaction, sighs and asks if talking is completely off the table. Hawk, his expression colder than an ice cube in Antarctica, simply tells Lucas to shut up. Lucas clicks his tongue, already expecting this answer, and releases another burst of magic. He fires multiple attacks in quick succession, forcing Hawk to charge forward while deflecting them with his sword. But mid-charge, Hawk suddenly halts. His gut tells him the next attack isn't just big, it's realizing he can't block it with his sword alone. He extends his arm and uses his golem weapon to deflect the blast. For a brief moment, relief washes over him. But then, his gaze snaps upward and he spots Lucas above him. It was all a bait. Before he can react, a devastating blow slams into his chest, sending him crashing into the ground with enough force to leave a crater. Just a Cat watches in horror as Hawk struggles to get up. His small paws twitch as he remembers something: his father, his failure, and the regret of not stepping in sooner to save his father while he could. His heart starts pounding, and this time, he won't stand by. Meanwhile, Lucas, now ready to finish Hawk off, charges up another attack. The air hums with magic as he unleashes it. Just as the attack is about to land, Just a Cat throws himself forward. Lucas's eyes widen in shock when he realizes that his magic didn't hit. He glances at his weapon. Something feels off. His mana is vanishing. Turning back, he sees Just a Cat standing protectively in front of Hawk, his tiny body absorbing mana from both weapons. With a determined glare, Just a Cat announces that he won't let anyone die and will use his own strength to protect them. Hawk blinks, momentarily forgetting his pain. His eyes dart to his weapon as he realizes that it's useless. No mana left. But then realization strikes. The cat isn't just absorbing one type of mana, he's draining both his and Lucas's energy. Even Lucas looks stunned, realization dawning that he can't use magic anymore either. Hawk slowly rises to his feet And with each step forward toward Lucas, confidence returns to his movement. If this fight comes down to raw physical combat, then Hawk has the advantage. Lucas, now forced into a fight without magic, locks eyes with Hawk. Both men prepare to charge, but just before they can clash, a giant pair of magic arms slam them into the ground. Both fighters grunt in confusion as they struggle against the sudden force. Just a cat, standing between them, shouts like an angry mom scolding her kids after getting degrade. "Will you two stop acting like idiots?" Hawk, still pinned, glares at the cat. "What the hell are you doing?" Just a Cat approaches Hawk and reveals that Lucas actually wants to talk and suggests they hear him out instead of trying to turn each other into roadkill. Lucas sighs and nods in agreement. Hawk, still frustrated, grumbles under his breath. He thinks for a moment before finally giving in. A few minutes later, they all gather around Sirius's coffin. Just a Cat naturally perches on top of it like it's his personal throne. Hawk and Lucas lock eyes, tension still thick in the air. Finally, Lucas breaks the silence. He reveals that he's here because of Sirius. It turns out Sirius knew Hawk would be a wreck after hearing the news, so he had Lucas come to look out for him. Hawk narrows his eyes, suspicion creeping in. He asks about Lucas's connection to Sirius. Without hesitation, Lucas reveals that he was Sirius's informant. Hawk's entire demeanor shifts, and he glares at Lucas, who returns the look without flinching. Just a Cat, sensing another potential brawl, hurriedly tries to activate his mana, ready to break up round 3. But before he can, Hawk sighs and mutters that they're not fighting. Lucas, keeping his cool, finally explains everything. He reveals that it all started with the Topaz Kingdom's research on magical life forms. Pulling out a photograph, he shows them an image of a tree. Not just any tree, the world tree. Lucas explains that this parasitic magical life form was the key to their research. If it took over a host, even an ordinary person could wield magic. But there was a catch. The host lost all sense of self and became a mindless puppet. Lucas flips through more photos, revealing that the kingdom planned to weaponize it. Their test subjects, Death Knights, magical creatures, and monsters. Hawk stares at the images, his jaw tightening. Lucas continues, stating that every single test subject lost their identity, except one, Sirius. Being a mage, Sirius was somehow immune to the full effect. He managed to escape with his mind intact, but at a heavy cost. Hawk, processing all this, doesn't look convinced. His eyes flick back to Lucas, suspicion returning. He asks how he's supposed to believe any of this. Does Lucas even have proof that these photos aren't just made-up nonsense? Lucas simply shrugs, admitting there's no solid proof right now. But that's exactly why he brought Sirius' corpse, so Hawk can see it with his own eyes. He further reveals that Sirius originally planned to hand over all his findings before completely losing himself, and ultimately took his own life. Hearing that, Hawk raises an eyebrow and questions why Sirius would do that if he was immune. However, Lucas corrects him, revealing that Sirius wasn't fully immune, the effects were just delayed. He adds that Sirius first considered using the guild's technology to find a cure, but later scrapped the idea. When Hawk asks why he abandoned that plan, Lucas casually points at him, dropping the bomb that it was because of Hawk. That hits like a leather ball in Winters, making Hawk furious as he demands if Lucas is implying that Sirius died because of him. Just a Cat, on the verge of losing his whiskers from stress, scrambles to stop them from throwing hands, but Lucas remains chill, explaining that he knew Hawk had been sent by the squad to assassinate Sirius. So, Sirius chose to die at Hawk's hands to prevent him from being labeled a traitor. Hawk lets go of Lucas' collar, his face turning pale as he sits down, processing the shock. He starts to confirm if Sirius truly died because of him, but stops mid-sentence, suddenly turning to Just a Cat and demanding the real reason why he and his father came here. Just a Cat hesitates before revealing that they were running from the master of the tree, trying to survive. Hearing that, Hawk clenches his fists and declares that the master of the tree is the true villain. The one who planted the world tree, turned the Death Knights into test subjects, and caused Just a Cat's father's death. He proclaims that once he takes down the master, everything will return to normal. However, Lucas stays stone cold, shutting him down by saying that Hawk isn't looking at the bigger picture, he's just letting revenge steer the wheel. He then asks if Hawk even knows the real identity of the master of the tree. Hawk, not in the mood for riddles, throws the question right back, hinting that Lucas sure sounds like he knows something. Lucas nods and finally spills the tea. The only person with the power to plant a world tree in the royal palace and turn Death Knights into lab rats is none other than the king of the Topaz Kingdom himself. The air turns heavier than a plate of mom's home-cooked food as Hawk processes this, asking about their next step. Lucas explains that the Death Knights were originally the king's assassination squad meant to eliminate enemies of the kingdom, but before he can continue, Hawk cuts him off, revealing that now the real enemy is the one who destroyed the kingdom itself, and as Death Knights, it's their duty to eliminate that threat. Lucas, unimpressed, challenges him, asking if he seriously thinks he can take the king down, especially since he almost got folded by Lucas just moments ago. Hawk, instead of arguing, scoops up Just a Cat, confidently stating that he's sure he can win, with Just a Cat by his side. Turning to the feline, he reminds him of his words about putting his strength to good use, saying that now is the time to use that power and take the world back from the master of the tree. Just a Cat blinks, completely baffled, before hesitantly asking if Hawk just said they're about to save the whole world. Before Hawk can respond, Lucas butts in, pointing out that calling their mission saving the world might be a stretch considering the fall of the Topaz Kingdom could have just been a big ol' accident. If that's the case, Hawk should be worried about the king's safety instead. Hawk, not buying it, fires back saying the king used Death Knights as lab rats and betrayed them. He challenges Lucas, asking if he's truly sure the kingdom's downfall was accidental, adding that if it wasn't, then the tree's owner could easily topple another kingdom too, just like the Topaz Kingdom. Lucas stays firm, accusing Hawk of using the kingdom's fall as an excuse for revenge. However, he admits he's not interested in Hawk's motives and tells him to do whatever he pleases before turning to leave. Before he can bounce, Hawk stops him, questioning if he's just going to leave all that stuff behind. Lucas reveals that he initially planned to use Sirius's corpse and documents to expose the World Tree's existence, but now that everyone already knows, there's no point in keeping them. Hawk asks if Lucas really intends to give up all that information just because of that. When Hawk says Lucas's decision is making him lose confidence, Lucas casually claps back, saying he understands the need for caution but has no reason to deceive him. He explains that only he and Sirius knew about the World Tree, and that taking the documents to the guild would only stir up a hornet's nest. He then looks at Hawk and tells him to use them to survive. Hawk glances at the corpse for a few seconds before stopping Lucas again, saying he has one last question. Lucas sighs and asks what it is, and Hawk brings up the fact that Sirius knew about Just a Cat, asking about the little guy's real identity. Lucas, now looking at him like he's lost his last brain cell, asks if Hawk has seriously been dragging that cat around without knowing anything. After a beat, he rummages through the documents, pulls out a photo, and shows it to Hawk, pointing out that the cat appears in one of the images, meaning it was likely a test subject too. Hawk looks at Just a Cat, suddenly sweating bullets, realizing that if the feline was experimented on, the World Tree might have already parasitized it. His mind races, fearing that, just like Sirius, the cat could start showing symptoms anytime. Before he spirals too hard, Lucas reassures him that the cat hasn't been parasitized. Hawk demands proof, and Lucas explains that any creature affected by the World Tree would have a tree growing somewhere on its body. A human might be able to hide it under clothes, but there's nothing on the cat. Hawk, still skeptical, asks if Just a Cat is receiving power from the World Tree. Lucas shakes his head and reveals that the Topaz Kingdom wasn't just researching the tree. They were also experimenting on magical creatures, trying to turn them into weapons. Since Just a Cat has unique abilities, it checks out. He even jokes that the cat is so ridiculously powerful, he wouldn't mind swiping it for himself. Hawk immediately goes full mama bear mode, backing up and drawing his sword to protect Just a Cat. Lucas, barely holding in a chuckle, waves him off, revealing that he was just kidding and has no plans to snatch anyone's life. With that, he declares his business finished and starts leaving, stating that he needs to track down the runaway carriage. Hawk watches him go, confirming his name one last time before muttering that he never wants to see him again. then, almost begrudgingly, admits that the guy was actually a huge help. A few moments later, he dons his helmet and approaches the documents, contemplating his next move. He wonders if he should share the information with Gunter and Lena, realizing that if he tells them everything honestly, they might actually believe him. However, doubt creeps in. What if they suspect him of being a traitor? What if things get even messier? He ultimately decides to keep his lips sealed, choosing instead to return to headquarters with the corpse as it is. He figures that once he clears himself of any traitor accusations, he'll have the freedom to uncover the true mastermind behind everything. Just as he makes up his mind and prepares to leave, Just a Cat calls his name, saying that family is precious to him. He adds that Hawk is like family and he never wants to lose him, just like he lost his father. Hawk, slightly baffled, points out that they've only known each other for 3 days. Just a Cat, dead serious, repeats that he means it, as Hawk was there for him through tough times. Hawk, caught off guard by the cat's unwavering trust, falls silent. However, his thoughts are interrupted when Just a Cat suddenly asks what is precious to him. As Hawk pauses to think, Just a Cat declares that he never wants to lose anything precious ever again, and promises to help Hawk protect whatever is important to him. But Hawk, still deep in thought, realizes something shocking. He has never truly considered what is precious to him. Hawk realizes he needs to think his answer through carefully since it might affect his bond with Just a Cat. If he messes up, the little guy might just ditch him, and that's a no-go. Scrambling for a response, he finally declares that the most precious thing to him is the Death Knights, adding that they could be in danger at this very moment. As he voices his determination to protect them, a tiny voice in his head wonders if this was the right answer. Should he have gone big and dramatic with a saving the world speech instead? However, Just a Cat nods in approval and promises to help, stating that they will protect what matters most to them together. Hearing that, Hawk breathes a sigh of relief and thanks Just a Cat, still unsure if the answer truly satisfied him. As he pats the cat's head, a realization hits. He must tread carefully and prioritize keeping this partnership strong. If their future enemies are anything like that reincarnated wyvern, he knows for a fact that Just a Cat's abilities are a must-have. Looking ahead, he asks if they should start moving toward the Topaz Kingdom. Just a Cat agrees, and as Hawk starts walking, he remains oblivious to one crucial thing. No matter what he answered, Just a Cat was never going to leave him. The cat had already become someone precious to him, and in the end, that was all that really mattered. A few moments later, Hawk deploys a message to Gunter's shop using his weapon golem. As the golem hovers near the shop's window, someone inside opens it, instantly recognizing the little metal critter as Hawk's. Without wasting time, the golem drops a letter before zooming off like it had places to be. The person picks up the letter and reads that Hawk has found a clue about Sirius and will return to headquarters after completing his mission. As soon as she finishes reading, she channels her magic power and burns the letter to a crisp, shaking her head in frustration. The guy didn't even swing by to say hi, just left a message, and her eye twitches as she mutters about all the effort she put into preparing a surprise party. And by surprise party, she doesn't mean alcohol and vodka, she means Lena and Gunter currently tied up and captured by her. With a smirk, she watches the ashes scatter, hoping that she and Hawk will meet again very soon. As the weapon golem reaches Hawk, he catches it midair and nods in approval, acting like the machine actually understands his praise. Bro really thinks it's sentient. While Just a Cat naps on his shoulder, Hawk sighs, realizing he's already running behind schedule and needs to get moving. After some time, Just a Cat wakes up and stretches like a king, catching Hawk's attention as he confirms if the cat is actually awake or just pretending. However, Just a Cat squints at the sky and points out something suspicious. Hawk, thinking the cat is just being dramatic, glances up and immediately senses a strange aura, realizing that something is definitely off. He admits that he felt some movement nearby and wonders if Lena somehow tracked him down. However, he soon realizes that no matter who's tailing them, there's no way to talk things out like civilized folks. This fight is inevitable. Just then, his gaze shifts forward and he spots 3 goblins charging toward him. He exhales, thinking, at least the threat isn't as bad as he expected. But before he can get too comfortable, one of the goblins' skin starts sprouting tree branches like a cursed houseplant, just like the parasitized wyvern from before. Hawk immediately ditches his relief, realizing that this fight is about to be a pain. He tightens his grip on his weapon and tells Just a Cat to hang on, warning that things are about to get spicy. As he releases his weapon golem, it darts toward one of the goblins, striking it and grabbing their attention. While they're momentarily distracted, Hawk narrows his eyes and wonders if the parasitized goblin is after Just a Cat specifically. If that's the case, he thinks this could actually work in his favor. It's the perfect chance to test the limits of his strength. Sitting down briefly, he draws his weapon and instructs Just a Cat not to use his powers. When the cat demands to know why, Hawk explains that his current mana cell is his last one. With that, he uses the weapon golem to bait the goblins into attacking. As they start chasing the golem like headless chickens, Hawk takes the opportunity to slice into one. The impact sends the goblin flying, but it quickly stands back up, roaring in defiance. Hawk frowns, realizing that something isn't right. He swung his sword with enough force to split the thing in half, yet the goblin doesn't even have a scratch. He wonders if goblins were always this tanky, when suddenly, another one leaps at him from the side. Reacting instantly, Hawk counters, sending the creature crashing into the dirt. Before it can recover, he commands his weapon golem to strike it down. Just then, another goblin rushes in at full speed. Hawk swiftly leaps onto the weapon golem's wire, using it as a platform to avoid the incoming attack. The goblin crashes headfirst into a boulder, momentarily stuck. Seizing the opening, Hawk counters midair and cleanly beheads the goblin before landing. As he turns to the last remaining goblin, he immediately senses that this one is built different. It lets out a deep, guttural roar, sending a massive surge of energy through the air. Hawk locks eyes with the creature, standing firm, as he invites it to make its move. Without hesitation, the goblin lunges, and Hawk swings to decapitate it, only for his sword to snap in half upon impact. He stares at the broken blade, realizing that this is a serious problem. Just a cat, still clinging onto his shoulder, asks what he plans to do now. Hawk smirks and reveals that he's got a backup plan, something new he's been meaning to test. As the goblin charges once more, Hawk pulls out his freshly crafted weapons. The moment the goblin gets close enough, he lunges forward and swiftly beheads it in one fluid motion. Landing smoothly, he inspects the dual blades in his hands and finally names them Wyvern Blades. Just a Cat practically bounces in excitement, hyping up the new weapon. Hawk, just as impressed, admits they're pretty solid against small to mid-sized monsters. However, before they can celebrate, the goblin's corpse twitches. Its wounds regenerate at an alarming rate, and branches start sprouting from its body like it's auditioning for a horror movie. Hawk groans, dragging a hand down his face. He really jinxed himself by cutting it. As the goblin fully stands up, its tree-like appendages growing even further, it lets out a monstrous roar. Hawk tightens his grip on his weapons, already realizing what's coming next. Looks like it's time for round 2. Before the goblin can fully steady itself, Hawk lunges forward, deciding to strike while it's still wobbly. No better time to hit than when the enemy's doing the cha-cha. However, as his attack lands, the goblin takes 0 damage. Hawk lands on the ground, processing what just happened. His brain gears start turning, as he remembers that dangerous creatures are divided into 2 categories, monsters and magical creatures. Just then, the goblin jumps into the air, coming at him with full force, clearly aiming to throw hands, or claws. Hawk raises his weapon and blocks, but the question nags at him. What exactly separates monsters from magical creatures? As he backs off, he recalls that in theory, monsters aren't supposed to use magic. That's what makes magical creatures different. But the goblin in front of him is radiating pure energy like it's no big deal. That's when it clicks. Could the monsters infected by the world tree be considered magical creatures? Before he can finish that thought, Just a Cat jumps in, declaring that he won't let the goblin take Hawk down. Hawk's eyes widen as he tries to stop him, but the cat barely listens. Before Hawk can even yell at him properly, Just a Cat releases a powerful energy blast straight at the goblin, reducing it to dust. The sheer force of the attack causes the weapon golem to fall, its mana completely drained. Hawk immediately takes off running in the direction of the blast, realizing that Sirius's corpse was in that area. His stomach drops as he reaches the spot, only to freeze in shock. Meanwhile, Just a Cat shifts nervously, worried that Hawk might be mad at him for using magic without permission. The cat quickly tries to explain, saying he was only trying to protect him, but Hawk doesn't react, still staring at the scene in front of him. Hawk watches Sirius's corpse in shock, realizing that the coffin is unscathed. Just a Cat, panicking, keeps apologizing, but Hawk completely ignores him. Stepping closer to Sirius's corpse, the cat watches as Hawk kneels beside it, still sitting on his shoulder. Then, Just a Cat hops down onto the corpse, debating what to say next. But before he can speak, Hawk finally does. To Just a Cat's surprise, Hawk admits that he owes him one, acknowledging that the cat saved his life. He even thanks him. Just a Cat's ears perk up, and he hesitates before asking if he really did a good job. However, Hawk immediately shuts that down, leaving the cat disappointed. He then reveals that because of Just a Cat's magic, his weapon golem is now out of commission, and Sirius's corpse was nearly destroyed. Just a Cat stares at him, guilt creeping in. Hawk doesn't sugarcoat it, and he adds that if the cat keeps acting on his own, trust will become an issue. Hearing that, Just a Cat quickly apologizes, his tail drooping. But Hawk simply looks at him and announces that from now on there will be a rule. Just a Cat, confused, asks what it is. Hawk studies him for a moment, realizing that the cat sees him as family. He understands that Just a Cat doesn't want to be alone and it'd be downright pitiful. But if he wants to tame this little troublemaker, he'll have to dig into that part. He finally states the rule: Just a Cat is not allowed to use magic without his permission. Just a Cat's ears twitch as he processes it. Then Hawk drops the real kicker. If the cat breaks the rule, he'll leave him behind. Just a Cat's eyes widen and he quickly agrees, realizing he has no other option. However, after a moment he speaks up again, saying that he wants to set a rule too. Hawk blinks in shock and asks if the cat is serious. Just a Cat puffs up, saying it's only fair. Hawk sighs, realizing he can't argue with that logic, and tells him to go ahead. With a determined look, Just a Cat lays out his terms. They must stay together, eat together, sleep together, and fight together. Hawk raises an eyebrow and casually points out that if Just a Cat just follows his rule, all of that will happen anyway. But the cat isn't having it. He insists that it's still a rule, and that if Hawk follows his, then he'll follow Hawk's. Hawk stands there for a second, realizing that even though the rule doesn't change anything, agreeing to it will make the cat happy. He sighs and finally agrees. Cat nods firmly, adding that there will be no exceptions. Hawk picks him up, deciding not to argue. His attention shifts back to the coffin. He inspects it closely and realizes that, despite Just a Cat's powerful magic, it's completely untouched. That means this coffin isn't ordinary. It must have some kind of special resistance. He opens it and examines the body inside, his gaze narrowing. Could the vines around it be responsible for this resistance? The shape reminds him of a magician's mana branch. Turning to Just a Cat, he states that he needs a favor. Meanwhile, at a distant military camp, a soldier rushes into a tent, calling for the commander. The commander glances up and asks what's wrong. The soldier hesitates before saying it would be better if he saw the issue himself. The commander frowns, realizing the soldier isn't exaggerating. If he's being this dramatic, then something must be seriously wrong. As he steps out of the tent and looks up, his jaw nearly hits the floor. Just a cat looms in the distance, sitting deep in the forest. The soldiers exchange bewildered looks, trying to process what they're seeing. The commander squints at the enormous feline and wonders if this is another variant of the world tree. Turning sharply, he asks Inspector Lucas for his thoughts. Lucas takes one glance at the situation and immediately taps out. He mutters that he suddenly doesn't feel well and refuses to answer. As Lucas shrugs and explains that the creature is just a magical one, adding that mutants have the world tree growing on them, so it can't be another variant, the commander eyes the giant cat, nodding slowly as if chewing on the thought. Without wasting time, he calls for Sergeant Jackson and orders him to rally the soldiers, declaring that they're going to hunt the magical beast. Jackson, being the ever-loyal minion, nods like a bobblehead and scurries off. Lucas, ever the skeptic, raises an eyebrow and asks if the commander really thinks he can take that thing down by himself. The commander, exuding peak overconfidence, grins and confirms, then bursts into laughter, adding that surely Lucas must be at least a little curious about how many magic stones could be stuffed inside that oversized furball. Lucas, stone-faced as always, replies that he's indeed interested and without missing a beat asks if he can join the hunt. The commander cackles and welcomes him aboard, but as they march, Lucas's expression darkens. Things are getting way too complicated, and at this point, he figures he's got no choice but to put his faith in that woman. The scene then shifts to a few moments earlier, where Hawk is still staring at Sirius's corpse, struggling to wrap his head around the situation. He wonders if the guy is really dead. After all, every host he's encountered so far has resurrected in some overpowered nightmare mode, yet Sirius just lies there, motionless. As Hawk keeps staring, he starts questioning whether there's some trigger for resurrection. He recalls how all the revived ones he has seen had their heads separated from their bodies, but before that idea can take root, his attention shifts to the world tree's vines, sensing some ominous aura from them. He decides to get rid of them, and turning to Just a Cat, he asks for a favor. The feline, mid-stretch, lazily asks what kind of favor he's talking about. Hawk requests that he try absorbing mana from the vines near Sirius' body. Just a Cat, wide-eyed and clueless, protests that he has no idea how to do that. This makes Hawk pause. Has the cat been absorbing mana unconsciously all this time? He narrows his eyes and asks how he even uses magic. Just a Cat proudly explains his foolproof method, revealing that he simply thinks about what he wants, focuses really hard, and bam, magic happens. He then whines about how back when he was with his dad, he kept failing, but with Hawk, everything just clicks. As Just a Cat bounces excitedly midair, Hawk catches him and places him in front of Sirius' corpse, instructing him to try focusing on absorbing mana this time. However, nothing happens. Just a Cat stops, muttering about how it isn't working. Hawk, also puzzled, wonders if there's some other condition to be met. He recalls all the mana Just a Cat has absorbed so far, mana cells, mana candles, even the parasitic world tree on that poor wyvern. He notes how the mana cell only had its mana drained, but when Lucas used a mana candle, both the spell and the candle's energy were absorbed. Then there was the world tree case, when the mana was only taken after the branch was damaged. Connecting the dots, he grabs a vine, hunts for the branch, and without a second thought snaps it. He quickly tells Just a Cat to try and absorb the mana now. Instantly, Just a Cat starts absorbing the mana, and Hawk grins. Success! The vines start disappearing, revealing Sirius's chest, where something glows faintly. A mana stone? Hawk narrows his eyes, ready to investigate further, when Just a Cat suddenly yelps about something bad happening. Hawk jerks his head up, his stomach dropping at the sight before him. Just a Cat, looking as confused as Hawk, stammers that he can't stop absorbing mana. His huge body trembles and he whimpers that it hurts. Hawk, instantly pissed, yells at him to cut it out if it hurts. But before the cat can even respond, a girl dashes in out of nowhere, startling Hawk as she rushes straight toward Just a Cat. She gently pats his foot and soothingly tells him not to be scared, promising to help. Hawk, being Hawk, doesn't trust a soul and immediately points his blade at her throat, warning her that this is not a stand-up comedy show, and if she tries anything sus, she's done for. The girl freezes, clearly scared out of her wits, and stammers that she's only here to help, begging him to lower his weapon. As Hawk gets a good look at her, recognition dawns as he realizes that he's seen her before at the guild. She might be an escort from there, but suspicion lingers, so he demands to know if she followed them. The girl, however, becomes scared, shouting that she just happened to pass by and saw the cat. Before the bickering continues, Just a Cat weakly whines that it hurts. The girl immediately takes charge, declaring that she's an expert in magic and magical creatures and knows exactly why the cat is in distress. She asks Hawk to step aside so she can help. Still not trusting her one bit, Hawk leans in and whispers a threat in her ear. If anything happens to Just a Cat because of her, she's done. The girl stiffens and quickly reassures him before telling him to stop scaring her as she is there to help. Lowering his blade, Hawk snaps at her to hurry up. Without hesitation, the girl asks him to hand over all his mana cells. That instantly makes Hawk suspicious. His first instinct is to just end her, but with no better option, he hands over his empty mana cells, warning her that they're drained. However, she nonchalantly states that's exactly what she needs. Raising her hand, she levitates the mana cells into the air and explains that Just a Cat is suffering from mana overload, and if they transfer the excess mana into the cells, he'll return to normal. A few moments later, Just a Cat shrinks back to his original size and plops straight into the girl's hands. She smiles down at him, praising him for doing a good job. Meanwhile, Hawk eyes the mana cells, realizing they've recharged with the cat's energy. As he catches them, the girl confirms that Just a Cat is now completely fine. Hawk, somewhat relieved, thanks her before finally asking who she is. The girl introduces herself as Wendy, a wandering mage. Before they can process everything, the situation takes another turn for the worse. The commander arrives, his army in tow, and immediately questions whether the magical creature is already someone's familiar. Hawk, staring at the armored men surrounding them, lets out a long sigh, realizing this day just keeps getting worse. As the army tightens its formation around them, the commander steps forward, his presence demanding attention. With a self-important air, he introduces himself as Harold Montblanc, a knight of the Garnet Kingdom. Then, with a voice dripping with authority, he declares that from this moment on, he is taking full control of the situation.